Have you ever wondered why some people seem to dominate every room they enter, without even raising their voice? It's not luck or charisma alone. According to Sigmund Freud, power is psychological. Deep within the human mind lie unconscious forces that govern behavior, control reactions, and shape influence. Freud believed that by understanding these hidden mechanisms, one could subtly but powerfully manipulate any social dynamic. Today, we dive into 5 of Freud's core psychological insights, not the usual textbook theories, but rules twisted through the lens of dominance. These aren't tactics for cruelty. They're mental frameworks that let you outsmart anyone by working beneath their awareness. So, if you're ready to learn how the unconscious mind can be your most dangerous weapon, let's begin with rule number 1, where dominance starts not with aggression, but with silence. Rule number 1, the power of controlled silence. Freud believed that silence isn't the absence of thought, it's the domination of it. Most people speak to escape discomfort, to fill the air, or to convince. But silence, used strategically, creates psychological tension in others. It forces them to confront their own unconscious fears, desires, and insecurities. In therapy, Freud used silence as a mirror, letting the patient's mind reveal itself in the void. In real life, this tactic holds incredible power. When you stay calm and silent during a confrontation, you force the other person to guess your thoughts. This taps into what Freud called the unconscious projection. They begin assigning their own fears or motives onto you. They become emotionally unstable, while you remain unreadable. It shifts control. Silence also triggers what Freud referred to as repetition compulsion. The need to resolve tension becomes obsessive. The other person keeps talking, oversharing, revealing more than they should, all while you dominate by simply observing. In moments of conflict or negotiation, don't rush to speak. Don't explain too much. Let the other person drown in their own words. Mastering controlled silence turns you from a participant into the unseen puppeteer of the interaction. Rule number 2, master the mirror. Use projection to control others. Freud's concept of psychological projection is one of the most manipulative forces in human interaction. He taught us that people unconsciously attribute their own feelings, motives, or flaws to others, because confronting them internally is too painful. But here's the twist. If you become the mirror they subconsciously seek, you can guide them without resistance. When someone projects, they expose their vulnerabilities without realizing it. For example, if someone accuses you of being manipulative, chances are they're the one trying to manipulate. Freud believed these projections were not random, but deeply rooted in repression. And once repression cracks, control becomes easier. To use this for dominance, reflect what others want to see. If they need validation, subtly give it, but withhold, just enough to keep them chasing. If they fear being judged, act nonchalantly while storing the information. They'll trust you with more. This method makes you a psychological safe zone, but only in appearance. Underneath, you're gathering insights and power. Freud's brilliance lay in recognizing that the mind's defenses expose more than they protect. By becoming a mirror, you aren't just listening, you're learning how to lead them, how to break them, and how to dominate without force. Rule number 3, exploit the id, trigger their primitive desires. According to Freud, the human psyche is built upon 3 core elements: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the most primal. It seeks pleasure, avoids pain, and knows no. Morality. It is impulsive, childlike, and dangerously influential. Most people suppress it, but it never disappears. It waits, hungry and irrational, beneath the surface. And here's where dominance begins. Freud argued that the id is the true engine of human behavior. People may pretend to be logical and ethical, but their decisions are often driven by subconscious urges, desires for sex, power, food, approval, or destruction. If you can identify someone's dominant id need, you can manipulate them without them ever realizing it. To exploit the id, appeal to their impulses, speak to their cravings, not their logic. Want loyalty? Stroke their ego. Want obedience? Dangle forbidden pleasure. Want submission? Threaten the thing they fear losing most. Freud called this the pleasure principle, the brain's automatic push toward gratification. Use it. The dominant individual is the one who recognizes what others crave and then becomes the gatekeeper to that craving. When you position yourself between someone and their desire, you control not only their behavior but their mind. That's not manipulation, that's Freudian dominance. Ruler number 4, control the superego, bend morality to your will. While the id is wild and impulsive, the superego is society's leash. It's the voice of guilt, rules, and morality, implanted during childhood through authority, culture, and religion. Freud argued that the superego is not truly you. It's a borrowed conscience, a set of scripts written by others. And here lies your power. Whoever shapes another's superego shapes their internal judge. People are terrified of guilt. They crave moral righteousness. Use this to dominate. Don't just offer rewards. Create the illusion of moral superiority. Present your actions, your ideology, your guidance as righteous, just, or higher purpose. Once you convince someone that following you aligns with their superego, they'll obey not out of fear, but out of virtue. Freud believed that inner conflict, when the ego is torn between the id and superego, is the root of neurosis. A dominant individual weaponizes that tension. Make others believe that to resist you is to betray their own values. Make them feel noble for submitting. Praise their goodness when they comply. Condemn their morality when they resist. Bending. The superego is not about force. It's about psychological judo. You redirect their need to be good into a need to serve your command. Their conscience becomes your tool, and in doing so, you don't just win influence, you win loyalty. Rule number 5, ego mastery. Mirror their mind, then lead it. The ego, according to Freud, is the mediator between our primal id, our restrictive superego, and the external world. It is rational, strategic, and concerned with reality. But here's the secret Freud hinted at. The ego is not fixed. It adapts to survive. It wants validation, balance, and control, desires you can exploit. To dominate psychologically, you must first mirror the ego of your target. Reflect their values, their logic, their worldview. Don't attack their ideas. Align with them. Let them see you as an extension of their own reasoning. Freud noted that people feel safest around those who confirm their internal models of the world. Once you're inside that cognitive space, you can begin to subtly redirect it. Use mirroring to build rapport. Speak their language. Validate their thoughts. Then, once the ego lowers its defenses, begin to lead it with questions, contradictions, and carefully planted suggestions. The ego will accept new beliefs not because they're imposed, but because it believes it discovered them itself. This technique is pure Freudian influence. Infiltration before manipulation. Let them believe the idea was theirs. Let them think the decision was rational. Once the ego feels ownership, resistance dissolves. Outsmarting others doesn't require louder voices or stronger arguments. It requires finesse, mirror, then lead. Understand, then reshape. Control the ego, and you control the self. In the quiet corridors of the human mind, where instincts war with ideals and reason fights for control, Freud left behind a map. Not just of how we think, but of how we are ruled and how we can rule. Dominance, in his view, is not about brute force or manipulation. It's about insight, precision, understanding the invisible gears behind every behavior. Outsmarting others begins with outsmarting yourself. When you recognize your ID's hunger, your superego's chains, and your ego's balancing act, you no longer play the game blindly. You play it deliberately. These 5 Freudian rules aren't tricks. They're psychological scalpel blades, sharp, subtle, and surgical. Learn to wield them not for cruelty, but for clarity. In every conversation, every negotiation, every unspoken power dynamic, use the unconscious forces at play to your advantage, because once you see what drives others, they can no longer drive you.